Jared is going to be your head judge for tomorrow. Came all the way from the States.
One of them. I guess work with
one of level 4 from Roanoke, Virginia. And basically Judge Superstar. So, whatever you feel like jumping in, jump on in. I'm going to try to make this a somewhat interactive seminar where I'm going to be asking you guys to talk rather than having us do all the talking. It seems like a fine plan. Delegating all the doing the seminar stuff, which is part of the leadership thing. So what's funny, Jeremy? When I was first asked to run a seminar, I was asked, can you do a seminar on team leading? And I said, sure. I'd be happy to do a seminar on team leading. Remind me a week before the event that I actually need to prepare this. And when I saw the schedule for the conference, it didn't say team leading, it said leadership. And I was a bit confused there because team leading and leadership are two quite different things. And before we start by digging into what leadership means, I'd like you guys to help us all understand what the difference would be between team leading and leadership. Because I'm going to give a seminar here about leadership, as it's on the schedule, rather than doing something about team leading. I want you guys to tell us what the big difference is, according to you. Anyone?
Leadership is more general, not of the same body language. It's more about community or spread.
Okay, so I hear community. It's more general than
you can be a team leader without any leadership.
You can be a team leader without any leadership.
And leadership is just one of the aspects of team leading.
Leadership is one aspect of team leading.
Basically, one is an activity or role, and the other one is a quality, something you are or do.
Okay, I like that. Anyone else?
Leadership is behavior, team leading is one word.
Yeah. So team leading is a job that you have. It's an activity that you do. It's a task that you try to perform, that you try to execute. Where you have a bunch of people and you need to direct those people. Whereas leadership is, as I said, it's more general. It's a quality. It's something that you can display without being a team leader. It's something that you don't necessarily need to be a team leader, but that you need to be a good team leader or a great team leader. So there's a few differences there. Team leading is the activity, whereas leadership requires a sort of a presence, a sort of I've heard community building, I've heard, the one word that I didn't hear that I would have liked to hear is inspiring people. Something that sets a team leader apart from a leader, as in somebody in a leadership role, is, in my opinion, inspiring others.
One other thing that I would add, we hit on it a lot with the team leader being a role rather than being something that's kind of inherent in the way that you perform. Team leading is something where you're given a set of goals. Leadership is where you exude a set of goals. You're helping to push goals that you have out to the rest of the event, out to the rest of the community. And so Emilian put it very well when he said, team leading is you are doing this. You are given a task to complete, whereas leadership inherently you are figuring out what you want to accomplish, and then you're involving others in doing it.
Yeah. Another common mistake is to confuse leadership with management. Again, this comes very close to leadership and team leading. One of the reasons that, at least back in the days and still nowadays, level 3 candidates don't pass their level 3 panel is because they misunderstand, misinterpret, and execute in the wrong way leadership, what the term leadership means to them. And they confuse it with management. And one of the comparisons that I've heard when I was still going for my level 3 was, and I guess you know this one, the jungle comparison. You have an expedition, and there's going to be, in this expedition in the jungle, you have, I don't know, maybe 10 people, and there's going to be the guy that makes sure that the knives are sharpened and that all the traps are being set for catching wilds, for catching animals to eat, for foraging, that makes sure that everybody has his job, that there's a watch at night, that there's a campfire, all that stuff. And you might confuse that guy with the leader, whereas in fact he's just executing stuff and he's making sure that the expedition gets managed. The leader is the one that is going to climb up in the trees and he's going to look around. He's going to say, that's the direction we're going. He's the one setting the goals rather than being the executor or the organizer.
As Jurgen mentioned, one of the big tripping points for a lot of candidates is identifying the difference between responsibility granted by an assigned position and the kind of internal responsibility that comes from being a leader within the community. People looking to, independent of the position that you're in, is really much more of the leadership. And we see a lot of candidates who feel that they're not supposed to step out and take a leading role when they're not assigned it. And we actually want to see exactly the opposite. We want to see you be able to step out and be a leader, regardless of what role you're given within the tournament. Now, there is the caveat of being able to do that without undermining people who are assigned to leadership. We have seen candidates in the past, and we see judges at times, who are on a team and who, knowingly or unknowingly, try to usurp the team leader when the team leader is not performing well, rather than supporting them and helping them to become a more effective leader. And so you see, leadership being independent of role doesn't necessarily set you completely apart from the assigned roles in the event, and it actually can change the dynamic of the type of leadership that we want to see. You can be a leader in a supporting role by helping the person who's in that team lead role to do better. And people, especially people who are looking at it for leadership qualities, are going to see how you perform and are going to be able to identify, you know what, Milian didn't step out front, and he wasn't the one who was looking for all the glory, but you know what, he was very important to Maria's success on day 2. And so that type of role and that type of leadership is something that's much harder to develop than, you know what, you're going to go out front, you're going to lead. If I tell you that, you can probably do that. But being able to do it without that assigned role, that's something that's much more complicated.
So, do we have any questions so far? Because we're talking very generic, I think, and I hope that we're not confusing you too much. So if you have any questions, just ask. If something's not clear, if we're being too abstract, just let us know. All right? It's not an easy topic, and it's easy to use the forest for the trees. So no questions, everything's clear? One of the things I had in mind for this seminar is I would like you all to think of your local community, like the judges back home, and who you consider in that community, and that community can actually be broader than just the judges, who you consider to be a leader there, and especially why. What is this person doing that sets him or her apart from the other people in that community, and that makes you look up to that person, consider that person a leader? So take a minute to think about that, and then I'd like to have some people talk about their local leader and what sets their leader apart, what's special about that particular guy or girl. So take a minute to think about that. If you have somebody from the region nearby, have a chat. And then we'll be happy to listen to what you come up with.
And so if someone stands out, feel free to raise your hand.
I think that the important thing is that the person organizes a lot of educational things like conferences and other ways to educate other fellow judges at the tournament. It helps other judges not to do their work, but to become better in doing that.
Okay, so facilitating conferences, facilitating opportunities to learn, not just at events, but also outside of them, but at events making sure that the judges walk away taking more away than just accomplishing running the tournament. So that's it.
Delegating tasks.
Delegation. Yep. Delegation is an important piece of the whole leadership puzzle, because if you're going to manage things in a broad sense, you can't get bogged down into all of the minutiae of running an event. But there is the danger of going too far. Has anyone ever been around someone that they felt simply delegated everything and didn't do anything themselves? Besides work. And how do you feel about someone who you see as delegating all of the tasks and not taking anything onto themselves? Is that somebody that you view as a leader?
I feel kind of cheated.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
yeah, it's unfair, but if you say delegation,
I think that the crossing line there is, at some point, if you delegate something and you start delegating more and more and more, you start not only not being in charge of the task, but actually losing the responsibility for the task. And I think once you cross the line where people don't feel you're responsible anymore, that's where you lose a lot of the whole leadership that surrounds you. Now, one thing about delegation, though, that I would like to add is that delegation is something that you need as a team leader. You need to do it as a manager. What sets the manager who delegates apart from the leader who delegates is that the manager delegates something in order to be able to have an overview, in order to be able to get the job done, to divide et conquer, so to divide and conquer, split up the task in little jobs, give jobs to somebody, and that's the end goal for the manager. The leader will delegate with the goal of making the other guys shine. I'm going to give you some particular task, and I'm going to make sure that it's clear that you take the credit for it. My goal is not to get the task done, that's secondary, it's also a goal. But it's secondary to making sure that you're in the position where you do the job and you shine by doing the job.
The word that I use for it is engagement. If you lose engagement with the tasks that you're delegating, that's going to send the message to the people that you're working with that you don't care about it, that it's not important to you, and that by extension, by assigning them to something that is not important to you, they're not important to you. So the leader remains engaged even when they're delegating. So when you hand off a task and you ask somebody to take care of something, checking back in, seeing how it's going, talking about how they're accomplishing it, that's part of leadership, is being able to remain engaged in the multiple tasks that you're delegating.
It is part of the leadership circle that you have to control something that you gave someone as a task. So if you don't end up in the control phase, you cannot lead.
So simply handing something off is not delegation. Delegation requires follow-up.
Something that is close from also education is that the feeling I have is that in a good delegation, so people you delegate to can make mistakes and learn from these mistakes, but at the same time, there is the assurance that they cannot spread bigly because you're still behind them and still acting as a fail-safe. But support, they can still make mistakes during this delegation, and more important, learn from them.
Absolutely.
Delegation, I feel like it's important that when you give the job, you want not to try to manage, but on the other side, the person you delegate to feels your presence. That you're still there, but you're not controlling too much.
Again, I'm going to talk about balance here because it's going to come up a lot. You want to make sure that you remain engaged, but also when you delegate a task to someone, you want them to feel the responsibility for it. Because if you're staying too engaged, as you mentioned, micromanaging, then you haven't really given them the task. You aren't giving them that chance to shine and for it to be their responsibility and their success when it's accomplished. And so finding the balance between here, this is yours, turn around and walk away, and this is yours, I'm here if you need me, and I'm going to follow up with you, we're going to talk about how it went. Finding that balance that makes the person that you're handing off to feel that they are supported but in charge of the task is very important, and that can be a very tough skill to develop because it changes from person to person. There are people who want you to just give them the task and at the end of the day come back and say, hey, good job. And that's the follow-up that they want. There's also people who want you to give them the task and then discuss with them how you want it accomplished. And so figuring out kind of what balance and how much you need to be engaged with each judge that you're working with is a skill that you need to work on.
I think if you talk about delegation, you can also talk about who's responsible and who's accountable. If I have a leader and I give the responsibility of the task to someone else, and something goes wrong, I don't just say he was responsible. I don't give it because I am still accountable for it. And I was just saying, I assigned it to the person, I didn't give him the tools, and he wasn't ready for it, so I am still accountable for if something wrong.
How many of you have taken responsibility for something that somebody else screwed up? That's leadership. If you are the team lead, at the end of the day, it comes back to you. If you're in a position of responsibility, it's your responsibility to make sure that it is accomplished. You are accountable, as Joel says. Now, through delegation, you may not be directly doing it, but it's still your responsibility to make sure that it is handled, that it is done, and that if it is not, proper fail-safes, proper checks are in place to make sure that it gets caught and gets accomplished maybe a little bit later than you were hoping, but that it still gets accomplished.
Anyone else want to talk about their local leader? Joe?
Usually a local leader is also somebody that the people turn naturally to if they have any problems or complaints within the community. So he or she didn't ask for like, come to me if there is a problem, but if they have a problem, they're just like, I will talk with this person. And if they can name all the different people name the same person, they have a problem, then you usually have identified them.
So a leader has in his community a central role, and that role is not something that he gets appointed. It's not like somebody's going to say, talk to this, people are going to figure, I have this problem, who should I talk to? And they will naturally go and talk to that person. And that is also what leadership is about.
It's a reference.
A reference, yes.
It's kind of like nicknames. If you try and give one to yourself, it doesn't work. Nicknames come from outside. Recognition as the leader of a community comes from that community.
Leader chose initiatives. Our leader he created basically judge meeting every month.
Who?
Huh?
Who are we talking about?
No, not me.
But who are we talking about?
Something like this.
Okay.
He started a judge meeting in our areas for judges and interested people that are interested in it once a month, and we got that done.
So that's part of the showing initiatives, building a community, as Maria said earlier, and being that central point, being that guy that people can trust to lead the community.
Step one of that is recognizing that there's a need, but the leader recognizes that there's a need and then goes and fulfills it. There are you'll see other people who recognize that there's a need, and their response will be to go and say, wouldn't it be great if? there was a meeting. Well, okay, that indicates to me that maybe that person's not the leader of that community. If all they're doing is recognizing that there should be something, but they're not going to go and make it happen.
Also, volunteering and knowledge. We talked about the last strategy, that's us discuss about stuff. And if we don't come to a conclusion, we're basically asking him how is it. And he gives an answer which everyone is taking.
Respect.
Yep. And as you mentioned, experience and knowledge are two things that are going to contribute a lot to your ability to be a reference. You know, there are some people who kind of come to the judge program with a great amount of knowledge, but most of us build it up over time. I know that I do. And so, you know, when you're able to say, you know, here's what I think we should do because of X, Y, and Z, that's going to make what you're saying carry a lot more weight.
A leader is also someone who is involved in communication in two ways, but deliver information on all kinds of on things. Could be just indication if you want more information about what you hear, or just information about upcoming things or whatever information that people say up to date. But also, you know that if you have something to express, but you don't know exactly to who, you can go to him and tell him, yeah, these are things, but I want people to be aware, and you know what you will transmit to them.
So as a leader of your community, you're not just taking the initiative to do new stuff. You're not just there to mentor and to educate, but you're also there to ensure that they stay connected in every way. So information is flowing from outside to your community. Feedback from your community goes back to where it belongs, and you're a focus point for that communication. You're the one that's delivering it, that's collecting it, that's disseminating it, that's summarizing it. Whatever the community needs in terms of communication, you're there to do that as a leader. Anyone else?
See someone mentioning awareness word. What about feedback? You can feedback to the people you work with. If you're a leader,
education and mentor, I think it fits under here, but it's definitely, it's a piece that I don't think we quite hit on yet, is that the leader is the person who, at the end of an event, you see sitting around with the other judges and making sure that they have feedback on how they can continue to improve. I'm going to add one more thing here, an advocate. The leader is an advocate for his community and for the judges in their community. One of the big things that I say about the transition from level 2 to level 3 is that a level 2 is an advocate for themselves. They're looking for opportunities to head judge at PTQ, to floor judge at Grand Prix. They're looking for chances to continue to broaden their horizons. As you start to make the transition from a level 2, one of the newer ones, to more of a leader of the community and towards level 3, it's a fundamental shift. But you shift from being an advocate for yourself to an advocate for other judges. If you're coming to me and saying, hey Jared, I've got a judge who's coming to the States, he's really interested in working at one of the Star City Games Opens, can you get him onto staff? That indicates to me that you're not just looking for opportunities for yourself, but you're aware enough of your community and of the judges in your community to be saying, you know, this person is ready for this opportunity. How do I help them get it? And so that's a step that I definitely see, especially between the beginning level 2 and the experienced level 2s, and the ones who are becoming the real leaders of their community.
And it's not just for your community, it's also at events, it's also outside of events, like in a judge conference, thinking about how to help others shine, how to help others get chances, rather than just thinking about yourself. And while doing that, don't do it because you'll get credit for having done it. Do it because you actually want that other guy to get the chance. Do it for the right reason.
That said, I've always been an advocate for, you know, if you start out doing it for the wrong reasons, you're going to find your way to the right reasons pretty soon, or you're going to stop doing it. If you come to us a couple of times and say, hey, this person should really be on a GP, and what you're looking for is recognition that you're bringing people to us who should be at the GP. Okay, but you're not going to keep doing that for that reason. If you're going to continue to do that, if that's going to be consistent, it's going to have to come from really, having the judges in your community who you care about and you want to see succeed, and wanting to get them those opportunities. So I see a lot of times where people talk about, oh, don't do things for the wrong reasons. No, don't worry about it. The first couple of times you do them for the wrong reasons. People who try to do them for the wrong reasons for any period of time, stop. They don't, the wrong reasons don't support this. They don't keep you doing it. You might do it once or twice for those reasons, but you will not continue. So it's like a lot of things. There's a saying in the States called fake it until you make it, which is you pretend that you can do something enough times, then you're able to do it. And so, if you're not confident about a ruling, but you come to a couple of rulings and you pretend that you're confident and you think about, okay, I'm going to act confident. By the third or fourth time that you're doing it, you're going to be confident. So I'm less against the bad reasons to start off with because they're just not sustainable. Nobody's going to keep doing it for the wrong reasons.
Anyone else want to share something about a local leader or somebody that they think really inspired them as a leader in terms of magic or just program?
That's me.
I think that's really
That's going to be awesome all weekend.
welcome to the circus dance.
I was going to say, look for those seams and don't sit under them.
He also in the recognition that we have also good role models impressed by all they did and what they do. You know about what they do something because they already did it the last
I think so what Amelia mentioned was that, as Jurgen already put up, leaders are role models. They're people that people look at and want to emulate. They want to copy how they behave. And that's kind of a natural thing sometimes. You can work on it and you can develop it. But there are some people who just have that. And they're the lucky ones. The rest of us have to go through and try and figure out, okay, so what do I need to do? How do I want to behave so that people want to emulate what I'm doing?
There's a great deal of charisma involved there, which is something that not everybody is able to do much about. In fact, most people are just either born with a certain amount of charisma or they're not. And if you have that naturally, then inspiring people, being a role model, comes more easily than if you have to work on it. But as Jared said, this is definitely something that you can train on, that you can develop, and that in the end you could be a source of inspiration for people, even if that doesn't really come naturally to you.
There's kind of the natural version of inspiration, and then there are the people who work really hard, who do things the right way, who may not naturally have that charisma, but because they put in that hard work, because they have done things the right way, oftentimes it takes a little bit of getting to know them to realize that it's really somebody that you do want to copy, that you do want to emulate. And there are people like Eli Schifrin, who is a rules guru, may not be the person that you meet and immediately say, oh, this is somebody that I really want to be like. You talk with him for a little while, you start to learn a little bit more about him and about all the work that he does. He's somebody that you really do want to copy, but he's not naturally born with the stand up in front of everybody and everyone suddenly wants to follow him.
And the thing that's going to inspire you to go and try and copy him is the point where you start getting respect for that person. And respect is something that you can earn even if you don't have a great deal of charisma.
You can recognize a leader by the body language and by the way he's acting and talking.
I will say that this can sometimes be misleading. because the body language and the presentation is something that oftentimes is very natural, as we were talking about, and may not necessarily have the support of all the other stuff that we're talking about. And so you can see people who present themselves in that manner, who after you get to know them for a little while, you realize that it's a facade and that it's not there. And so while I agree that that's very important for a leader to develop, if you naturally have it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the rest of it. So it can be something you want to be wary of. When someone is jumping up in front and wanting to be the leader, that doesn't always mean that they should be.
And that's very, very much linked to culture. And I mean, as judges, we all have a big international group of peers that we interact with. And there's a very big difference between a judge from I don't know, from Sweden or from Finland, a judge from Spain, a judge from Greece, a judge from the US, somebody from Japan. They're really different.
Even different parts of the United States can be very different.
Yeah. So this part where the natural form of charisma, the natural stepping forward and trying to be up front there. Like Jared said, it might be a facade. It's something that as a leader you will definitely be able to put to good use, but it's not something that automatically makes you a leader. It makes you stand out. Standing out is not the same as leader.
If you naturally have that, it will give you a great opportunity to show that you have the rest of these. But if you have to develop something later in the process, focus on these, and then you can develop that, because drawing attention to yourself as a leader before you have the foundation may actually backfire.
And there are a lot of examples.
The word you hear thrown around, I believe, is arrogance. You may have heard it thrown around about me. But that's one of my definition of arrogance is it's something that is put onto somebody. Essentially, if you perceive that someone is acting in a manner that is not warranted by their experience or skill level, that's arrogance. And that's where you're going to see where this can get you into trouble if you don't have this.
That's where this will come without the respect. We haven't talked about different styles of leadership yet. If you go to an event and you're going to look to the head judge, let's talk about the Grand Prix and let's talk about how the head judge inspires you. If you go to an event where Jared is the head judge, or you go to an event where I'm the head judge, or you go to an event where Kevin is the head judge, you're going to see very different styles. And that doesn't mean that one of them is less of a leader than the other, or more of a leader than the other, but it does mean that you'll see differences. So who of you have been to, let's say, 4 or more GPs with different head judges? Okay. Can you name 2 extremes, people that lead in a very, very different way? Toby and Ricardo, yes. How?
Well, it's more complicated question.
It's a very complicated question. That's why we're trying to do the
It is different. Toby tends to focus more on the running of the event, and Ricardo tends to be focused more on judges and communicating with them.
Would you say that one of them is a better leader? If it's an unfair question,
not to put you on the spot.
If it's an unfair question, you don't need to answer.
Is there a leadership style that you prefer?
Yes.
Because obviously, by getting to level 5, both of them have demonstrated leadership. But it's different aspects as you identify. So is there one that you feel more comfortable with? Yes. We'll leave it at yes. That works. And so, there definitely are different styles of leadership. I'm much more of my schedules include when you're going to take your breaks. And so I will tell the team leads when I expect them to take their breaks. That's something that a lot of other head judges leave to the team leads to figure out amongst themselves. The reason I do that is I like to know when different teams are going to be off the floor, because the way I set up teams takes that into account. And so that's something that I focus on. I'm very logistics focused.
And you're going to look up to Jared. Why? You're going to look up to Jared because you know he's going to be in charge. He's going to be having the overview. He's going to know exactly what's going on, and you're going to respect that. And you're going to look up to him because you know that he's going to be on top of everything. And that's a very different style from a judge who's more focused on making sure everybody's having a good time, somebody who's trusting more on the team leaders to do the logistical parts. You're going to look up to that person as well. Why? Because you know that he's going to care for you. That doesn't mean that Jared doesn't care, but that doesn't mean that Ricardo isn't on top of things. They are, and they do care. But it's one aspect is just something that is going to be defining the type of leadership that person is emanating to.
And so, you're going to find yourself drawn to different types of leaders because you'll feel that you naturally match up with somebody. You'll work a Grand Prix and you'll feel a little bit off. And you'll say, I don't know, I didn't feel that I had the support that I needed, or I didn't feel like, the head judge was paying enough attention to the staff. Or you might feel any number of different things. Different types of leaderships are going to really click with different people. And so finding the people who you say, I think this person is a really good leader, those are the people you want to go talk to and say, hey, how do you do that? Because likely that's going to be the type of leader that you're more likely to develop into, because those are your priorities. If you're feeling comfortable, it means that your priorities have been met at that event. And you feel like, all right, this leader did everything that I think a leader should do. That's going to be the type of leadership that you're comfortable providing. And so go talk to those guys. Say, hey, I really felt good about this event. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you set it up, what your priorities were, what were you thinking about as you were running? And and it's going to be just as important to say, hey, I felt a little uncomfortable today. Can you talk to me about, why you did this or why you did that? Because as a judge, I felt like either, maybe we weren't as connected as a community as I thought we were going to be today. I felt like we were a little disjointed, or I felt like our assignments were unclear. And finding that opposite view. If you're uncomfortable, the leader's probably going to be able to give you some things that you don't necessarily think about. They may have done a really great job on something that is a little bit down your list in terms of what's important about running an event. And it may be that you need to adjust your list and shift that up so that other people feel more comfortable when you're the one out in front.
Yeah, that's something that everybody needs to learn. There's no one perfect way of being a leader. You're going to be great to some people and you're going to be less great to others. One of the pieces of feedback that I received after my first two GPs is that the staff doesn't really feel like a closed group like a staff. They feel like more being managed than actually being put into as the judge family. They didn't have the judge family feeling more than we are running an event. And that's something that I try to take into account. And it's something that doesn't come easily to me. I'm much more of the manager and the logistics guy than I am the guy who's going to bring people together and have a chat. I do have a chat with people, but it doesn't always come very easy to me to do that. Still, based on feedback, we try to do that. So there's a learning process, and there's much to improve. There's many things that you can always improve as in your leadership, in the way that you execute your leadership.
There are always going to be pieces of leadership that are much more conscious for you. As Jurgen mentioned, and I have the same thing, where I have to be much more conscious about creating that full staff feel, bringing people together, making sure that people feel like, all right, we're getting together and this is going to be fun and this is going to be, a great event that we're all working and we're all on the same team. That's something I need to do much more consciously than setting up a schedule for an event, making sure that things are laid out in a way that they're going to work logistically. That part comes naturally. And for other people, the part about community comes naturally, and they really have to sit down and buckle down on how to make sure that the pieces are fitting together in the proper way for the tournament to run.
Exactly. I'm going to be a team leader tomorrow at the main event, and it's been a while since I've been an actual team leader on the floor, and I really need to prepare. I have prepared something, and I really needed to do that to make sure that I was going to hold my team together, that I was going to get those people feel like a group. So I created a little game, a little something. But this is something that if I hadn't done that, then tomorrow I would fail at being somebody who really takes the group together. I would get the job done, and people would learn stuff, and I would delegate, and I would be there as support, and I'd be there as a reference, and I'd do all of those stuff. But bringing the community together, that would be really hard for me. So that's why I had to prepare for that. Whereas I can imagine that a new team leader, a new level 3, who's coming to his first Tech Check 1 team lead job tomorrow, that guy, I'm not sure who's Tech Check 1, so don't pin me down on any name.
Haven't made the schedules.
That guy is going to need to prepare really well for how the whole process is going to work.
And identifying the pieces that you need to put in work ahead of time, that's important. And that takes time for you to figure out, hey, I can walk in and handle this. But if I don't have a plan for this other thing, it's just not going to happen. And, for different people, those are different things, and they might be completely opposite. You might have people who can walk in the door and they don't need any sort of plan to have the team feel like a team and, get that cohesion going. But if they don't walk in the door with a plan on how to actually physically run the deck checks, it's just going to fall apart. And you're going to have us on the other side of it, who, if we don't come in with a plan for making sure that the team is engaging and is getting a chance to talk to each other and feeling like they get to be part of something, then we lose that.
I think the big message here is that we've talked about how leadership is something that requires some natural charisma, requires some innate skill that you either have or don't have, or you can train. There's always going to be some part preparation in there. Like, the perfect natural leader doesn't exist. It's a process where you learn, where you get better at, and where you just have to pay attention, have to prepare, have to train, have to get feedback, have to process that feedback, and have to work and reiterate the whole cycle again. So leadership is definitely something that if people tell you that you need to work on your leadership, don't say, but I'm never going to be like Jared. Think that I'll train and I'll improve.
That's good, by the way. Yeah, it's something, the one word that I've used a bunch of times is conscious. You need to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's one of the first steps to becoming a good leader, is taking the innate skills that you do have, because everyone has them. They're in different areas. And being able to break down and understand, all right, what am I doing and why? Once you've been able to do that, you can enhance the things that you're doing that you want to, and you can dial back a bit on the stuff that you realize that you're doing that you don't want and that's sending the wrong messages. And then you can start to add pieces on, which are things that naturally you don't necessarily do, but that by talking with people, by listening to some of the smarter people in the judge program, you learn, what, I should be doing this. It's not something I naturally do, but if I sit down and do a bit more planning for this before an event, then I'm going to be more successful, and I'm going to be able to help out more people. And so start by breaking down what you already do, and then build on that.
And you'll see that what you already do, is going to define much of your leadership style. Regardless of how much I train on the community aspect, I'm always going to be the guy that inspires, because he knows what's going on. He knows what needs to be done. I'm never going to be the guy that inspires because of the community stuff, even though I'll try really hard to get that in there. But that's never going to be my style of leadership. I'm never going to be like Ricardo. Sometimes I wish I could be, but it's just a different style. Anyone want to add anything? Any comments? Any questions? Remarks? Something that's been bothering you? Something that you just want to throw out there?
Tell us a little about conflict management. Because I think leadership is also has a lot of things to do with conflict management. You want to be the bad guy, you want to be the good guy.
You're always the bad guy. And to expand on that, I'm obviously joking there, because a lot of times you do want to be the person who's listening to somebody who's complaining about something, and really the only thing you can do is listen. And you're not going to be able to fix anything. All you're going to be able to say is, at the end of the day, I understand you didn't like that ruling, but here's why, and hopefully you can explain it. But there also are going to be a number of times where you do have to be the bad guy, and you have to be willing to do that, because you have to be the person who can get between one of your team, and by team, I don't necessarily mean you're a team lead and your team, and whatever is kind of coming after them, whether it's a player, whether it's the head judge, whether it's a TO. If you're the leader, you have to be the one who can intercept something that is coming at someone that you're in charge of. And whether you're a manager at work, inside, outside the judge program, being able to be the person who takes responsibility, who takes on the role of being the person that the aggression is targeted at, is important. And so that takes a fair amount of confidence and a fair amount of willingness to have someone walk away not liking you. And that can be very hard.
And at the same time, you always have to be the bad guy. It's indeed your, but you have to be willing to tell people that they need to do better. But what's really important there is that you do it in a way that you tell them to be better, but you're the support guy. You're the guy that's going to help them do it better. You're not the guy that's going to punish them for doing it badly. And I think a great leader is somebody who's able to step up and say, hey, yeah, I think that you could have done a slightly better job at back checks. Here's what I think went wrong. And next time, let's try to do it this way. If I can do anything to help you there, let me know. Make sure that you bring it in a way. Sorry for putting you on the spot. So make sure you bring it in a way where if you have to tell somebody that they can be doing a better job, that you are there not as the guy who's telling them off, but you're there as the guy who's going to support them and who's going to help them do a better job. So conflict management, yes, praise, sure. Make sure that they know that they're doing a bad job, but do it in a way that is clear that it's not a punishment, it's rather feedback, it's mentoring, and you're there to help them.
And I'm going to also kind of turn this a little bit. People talk about conflict management. They think of something going wrong and having to fix it. There's actually really two types. You have the conflict management that's reactive, and that's really where I was talking about. There are times you have to get in between the problem and whoever is being kind of attacked by the problem. And then there's also the conflict management that a lot of people avoid, which is talking to someone about something that's going wrong, where you're actually the person who is instigating the conflict. A ton of people just will not do that. It is not fun. It's not something that is going to generally feel like it's going to make your day better. You feel like this is not something I want to do, but it is very important. We have had a number of times where you will have someone who their self-evaluation is off wildly, not because they can't look at what they're doing and evaluate it, but because other people will not tell them, hey, this is bad, because they don't want to have that discussion. They don't want to walk through and have someone get mad at them, get frustrated at them, because you're telling them that they're not doing well. And especially when it's something that is not just, hey, you didn't do this deck check well. When it's something more inherent and more kind of built in, challenging someone on a way that they do something, on a way that they approach things is very hard to do. But it's something that leaders do, and it's something that you have to be able to go to somebody and say, hey, this needs to change. I'm happy to support you, and I want to help you get there, but this has got to change.
So yesterday in the restaurant, we had a pretty big group of people. I think we were like 12 or something, and we just had our dessert, and the waiter was asking, "Can I bring any coffee?" So what happened is people were, I want some coffee, I want some coffee, and then someone goes like, "I want a café au lait," and then somebody else, "I want an espresso, I want a longo," and one of the people at the table went like, "Shouldn't you be getting a piece of paper to write all that down?" But he brought it in a way that, let's say that, man, if you don't get a piece of paper, you're going to screw up bad. That's what he was saying by the way that he said, "Can you get a piece of paper?" So somebody else at the table said, "Hey, so here's what you did, and you really should improve on that." And I think that's an example of what Gareth was just explaining, that you need to be able to step in there to prevent that conflict from arising, to help a person become better.
So I guess I'll wrap up. Any other questions? Did we answer your question on conflict management? All right.
This is the last call of the GP
So I guess I'm going to message this one.
Yeah. So we hit on a lot of important things. I'm going to touch back on it because I think it's so important. Be aware of what you're doing. Talk to people about, if someone really works well as a leader for you, talk to them about why. If someone really doesn't work well as a leader for you, who you know is a good leader, talk to them about why. Talk about leadership. Talk about what somebody did that really made you feel supported. Talk to somebody about something that they did that made you feel like you had absolutely no safety net and you were terrified all day that you were going to screw up. When those things happen, talk about it. Think about it. Talk with other people. Go straight to the person who did it and talk to them. That's the most important thing and the best thing that you can do to help develop it within yourself.
If you're working at the GP tomorrow, I'd like to challenge you to actually do that. Take a look at your team leader, take a look at other people around you, take a look at your head judge, and try to identify what works for you and what doesn't, and then talk to the guy about it. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.